The great chamber floated in the empty space between stars. Inside, representatives from over 100 worlds gathered for the monthly council meeting. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had scales, others had crystals growing from their bodies. But they all came together to make decisions for the galaxy. Ambassador Krelthos stood up from his seat. His insect-like body clicked as he moved. His 4 eyes gleamed with excitement. "Honored council members," he began, "I bring good news. My people have found a new trade route. It will cut travel time by 3 months. Goods will flow faster. Everyone will profit." He pressed a button and a star map appeared in the center of the room. A glowing line showed the proposed route. It curved through the outer edge of the galaxy. Several council members nodded with interest. Faster trade meant more money for everyone. But then something unexpected happened. Elder Counselor Cerethia slammed her crystalline hand on the table. The sound echoed through the chamber like breaking glass. Her ancient body began to glow with a dark red light. Every person in the room fell silent. They had never seen the old one so angry. "No," she said. Her voice was cold and hard. "Absolutely not," Krelthos looked confused. "But Elder, this route is perfect. It saves time and resources." "Why would you—" "Look at your map again," Cerethia interrupted. "Look where your route passes." Krelthos zoomed in on the star map. The route came close to a large section of space marked in red. Very large. It took up 1/8 of the entire spiral arm. Words in hundreds of languages covered the boundary. Forbidden. Turn back. Do not enter. "We don't go near the boundary," Krelthos argued. "We stay at least 10 light years away." "That should be safe." "Safe?" Cerethia's voice rose. Several younger council members leaned forward. They had never heard such fear in her voice. "You don't understand. None of you younglings understand." A representative from the Peltax species spoke up. His people had only joined the council 200 years ago. "Elder Cerethia, with respect, we don't understand why that region is forbidden. It has been 847 years since anything happened there. Surely by now. Do you know how many species existed in this galaxy before they arrived?" Cerethia asked quietly. The chamber went silent. 400 species, she continued. 400 civilizations, all alive and thriving. "Do you know how many exist now?" No one answered. 127, Cerethia said. "Ask yourself why the number is so much smaller. Ask yourself what happened to the other 273 civilizations." A young Pelthax spoke up, his voice uncertain. "But the history files say they went silent. The humans, they stopped communicating. They've been gone for 847 years. Maybe they're extinct." "Maybe they are not extinct," Cerethia said firmly. "That is what we tell ourselves to sleep better." "But I was there. I remember. And let me be clear. They chose to go silent. They isolated themselves. For our protection, not theirs." She stood up, her old body shaking. "The boundary exists because they demanded it. Every weapon on every station around their territory points outward. Not to keep us out, to remind us what will happen if we go in." Krelthos still looked doubtful. "Surely you exaggerate, Elder. One species could not—" A loud alarm cut him off. Red lights flashed throughout the chamber. A technical officer rushed to the main console, his tentacles moving quickly over the controls. "What is it?" demanded the council chair. The technical officer's voice trembled. "A signal chair, a distress beacon. It just activated. From where?" the chair asked. The officer didn't answer at first. His color changed from blue to pale white. "From where?" the chair repeated. "From inside human territory," the officer whispered. "It's coming from the Sol exclusion zone. It's the first signal from human space in 847 years." The room erupted in chaos. Some council members shouted questions. Others began to leave their seats. But many of the older ones, the ones who remembered, simply sat frozen in terror. Cerethia slowly sat back down. Her glow faded until she looked gray and tired. "So it begins again," she said quietly. "They're waking up." Krelthos looked at the star map, at the massive red zone of forbidden space. For the first time, he noticed something he had missed before. The zone wasn't empty. There were thousands of stars in there. Millions of worlds. All silent. "All waiting. What do we do?" asked the council chair. Cerethia closed her eyes. "We do nothing. We pray it was an accident. We pray they stay asleep, because if they wake up, if they come back—" She opened her eyes and looked at each council member. The universe will remember why it learned to tremble at the memory of humanity. The distress signal continued to pulse from somewhere deep in the forbidden zone. And in the great silence of space, something ancient began to stir. The meeting ended with no decision made. But everyone knew the truth. The peaceful times were over. After 847 years of silence, something was calling from human space, and the galaxy was not ready for what might answer. Captain Ven stared at the star map on her ship's display. The red boundary line glowed in front of her. Beyond it was the forbidden zone. Behind her stood 6 crew members, all young, all eager for adventure. The council said no. Her first officer reminded her. They ordered everyone to stay away. Ven smiled. The council is afraid of ghosts. Our species didn't even exist during the human wars. We've only heard stories, old stories told by scared old aliens. She was Kelthran, a species that had evolved after the humans went silent. Her people had never met a human. None of the younger species had. To them, humans were myths, monsters that parents used to scare children into behaving. Think about it, Ven continued. If humans were so dangerous, why did they disappear? If they were so powerful, why did they hide? I think they died out. I think that distress signal is from an old automated system, and I think we're going to find abandoned technology worth a fortune. Her crew nodded in agreement. They were salvage hunters. They found old ships, old stations, old technology, and sold it. The Forbidden Zone was the biggest prize in the galaxy. 847 years of untouched human technology just waiting to be claimed. Plot a course, Ven ordered. We're going in. Their ship, the Wandering Prophet, crossed the boundary 2 days later. Ven expected alarms, warnings, maybe even automated defenses. But nothing happened. The space was quiet, empty, dead, see? She said to her nervous crew. Nothing to worry about. But then they started finding the stations. The first one appeared on sensors like a ghost, a massive defense platform floating in the dark. Its weapons were still pointed outward, away from human space. The metal was old, but somehow not rusted or damaged. It looked like it was sleeping, not dead. That thing is huge, whispered the weapons officer. Those cannons could destroy a moon. They passed 17 more stations. All the same. All silent. All with weapons pointing the wrong way. Why would they point their guns away from their own territory? Asked the navigator. No one had an answer. The distress signal led them deeper into the zone. On the 5th day, they found the battlefield. Thousands of ships floated in space. All dead, all alien. Ven's computer identified them. Sovereign collective warships, 900 years old. Each one had been cut apart with precision. Some were sliced in half. Others had holes burned straight through their cores. But what made Ven's blood run cold was the evidence. There are no human ships here, the tactical officer said quietly. All these alien ships destroyed, but not a single human wreck. How is that possible? Maybe the humans collected their dead, someone suggested. No, said the tactical officer. Look at the battle pattern. The alien ships are all grouped together. They were running, fleeing from something, and whatever they were fleeing from didn't lose a single ship. The crew fell silent. They followed the signal for 3 more days. Finally, they found its source. A research station orbiting a dead planet. The planet's surface was gray and lifeless. Nothing grew there. Nothing moved. Life signs? Ben asked. None. The station is empty. They docked carefully. The station had power, which was strange. Lights glowed in the corridors. Air cycled through the vents. But no one was home. The laboratories were perfect, clean, organized. Like someone had just stepped out for lunch and never came back. There were experiments half finished on tables. Notes written on displays. Coffee cups still sitting on desks. But the sleep pods were all empty. They left in a hurry, said the medical officer. These suspension pods are for long-term sleep. But they're all open, all empty. At the center of the station, they found it. A glowing sphere of blue light. An artificial intelligence core? Is it active? Ven asked. Very active, said her engineer. It's been waiting. Ven approached carefully. Hello, can you understand me? The sphere pulsed. A voice spoke, calm and clear. It spoke in perfect galactic common. Yes, I am Keeper Protocol 271. I have been waiting for someone to arrive. Waiting? For 847 years? Time is different for me, the AI said. I was instructed to maintain this station and wait. You are the first visitors since the isolation began. Ven felt excited. A human AI. The technology alone was priceless. Can you tell us what happened? Why did the humans leave? That is a complicated question, Keeper said. But first I must ask you something. Did your council send you to check if we are extinct, or did they send you to confirm we are not? The strange question made Ven pause. We came because of the distress signal. Ah, the signal, yes, that was automated. A system failure. I apologize if it caused concern. So there are no humans left here? Ven asked. The AI was quiet for a moment. I did not say that. Before Ven could ask what that meant, her ship's sensors began screaming alerts. The engineer checked his portable scanner and went pale. Captain, you need to see this. The deep scans just finished. There are hundreds of installations across this solar system, thousands across human space, all hidden, all in low power mode. And Captain, what? They're all armed. Every single one. With weapons our computers can't even identify. Ven looked at the AI sphere. Keeper, are the humans gone or not? The blue light pulsed slowly. That depends on your definition of gone. We stopped talking to you. We stopped visiting you. But we never stopped watching. We never left. We're just sleeping.
And the question you should be asking is not, are they gone?
But what happens if they wake up? Ven felt her hands go cold. Around her, deep in the dark of space, hundreds of hidden stations began to pulse with faint light, like eyes opening after a very long sleep. What have we done? She whispered. Ven and her crew gathered around Keeper's core. The AI's blue light pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. You want to know what happened? Keeper said. It was not a question. You want to know why the galaxy fears us? Yes, Ven said. Help us understand. Understanding may be worse than ignorance, the Keeper warned. Once you know, you cannot unknow. Once you see, you cannot unsee. Show us anyway. The lights in the station dimmed. Holographic projectors activated all around them. History came to life in front of their eyes. The first images showed humans. They looked weak compared to most species. No claws, no armor, no natural weapons. Just soft skin and clever hands. We came to the stars with hope, Keeper narrated. We wanted friends. We wanted to trade, to learn, to share. We were peaceful. The holograms showed human colony ships spreading across space. Small settlements on new worlds. Humans meeting other species, shaking hands, signing trade agreements. They looked happy. For 50 years, we built homes on 12 worlds. We had a population of 8 billion across our colonies. We asked to join the Galactic Council. We wanted to be part of the community. Ven watched humans dancing at festivals with aliens, children of different species playing together. It looked beautiful. Then everything changed. The holograms showed warships. Massive vessels bearing the symbol of the Sovereign Collective. They surrounded a human colony world. The Sovereigns were a powerful empire, Keeper explained. 200 worlds. 100 species under their control. They saw humanity as weak. They saw our colonies as easy targets. The crew watched in horror as the Sovereign fleet opened fire. Cities burned. Millions died. Human ships tried to fight back, but they were too small. Too weak. The colony fell in hours. They took 3 million humans as slaves, Keeper said quietly. They attacked 4 more colonies. We lost 20 million people in the first month. The holograms showed human delegates at the Galactic Council, begging for help, pleading for intervention, showing evidence of the attacks, the slavery, the deaths. The Council voted. The result appeared on the holographic display. 89 votes against intervention, 12 votes for, 26 abstentions. They said it was an internal matter, Keeper said. They said the Council should not interfere in territorial disputes. But the truth was simpler. The Sovereign Collective was profitable. They traded with everyone. Human lives were not worth losing that profit. Ven felt sick. Her own government had probably voted against helping. So we stopped asking for help, Keeper said. We stopped begging. And we started preparing. The holograms showed the change. Every human colony mobilized. Factories that made farming equipment started making weapons. Scientists who studied plants began studying weapons. Artists became engineers. Teachers became soldiers. 100 days, Keeper said. That's how long it took us to transform our entire civilization into a war machine. Every human, every resource, every thought focused on one goal, survival. The tactical displays were terrifying. Human fleets appeared from nowhere, striking with precision. They didn't fight like other species. They didn't charge forward or defend positions. They attacked like predators, like hunters. We studied them, Keeper explained. We learned how they thought, how they fought, what they feared, and then we used everything against them. The crew watched sovereign fleets try to regroup. Human ships released clouds of microscopic machines that ate through their hulls. They fired weapons that turned fusion reactors into bombs. They used gravity itself as a weapon, crushing ships like paper. 14 weeks, Keeper said. That's how long the Sovereign Collective lasted. 200 worlds. 80 billion people. They had a 1,000-year history. We erased it all. The holograms showed sovereign homeworlds, but they didn't show battles. They showed empty cities, silent streets, abandoned buildings. Where are the people? Ven asked. Gone, Keeper said simply. We removed them. All of them. We made their worlds uninhabitable for 10,000 years. We wanted to send a message. We wanted the galaxy to understand. Never again. But the horrors didn't stop there. 40 species supported the sovereigns, Keeper continued. They supplied weapons. They provided resources. They allowed the sovereigns to operate from their territories. They were complicit. New images appeared. Human fleets arriving at these 40 worlds. Not with mercy. Not with forgiveness. We gave them a choice, Keeper said. Surrender everything. Every weapon. Every warship. Every piece of military technology. Or face the same fate as the sovereigns. Most surrendered. 10 did not. The images showed what happened to those 10. Ven had to look away. Her crew members were crying. We destroyed 273 civilizations in total, Keeper said. Some completely, others partially. When we were finished, we sent a message to the Galactic Council. A hologram of a human woman appeared. She wore a military uniform. Her eyes were cold and empty. I am Admiral Chen, the hologram said. Humanity is removing itself from galactic affairs. We are establishing an exclusion zone around our territory. No one is permitted to enter. No one is permitted to contact us. If you violate this boundary, we will consider it an act of war, and if you make us come out again, we will not stop until every species in this galaxy is extinct. We will finish what you made us start. The hologram disappeared. The lights came back on. Ven and her crew stood in shocked silence. That is why the galaxy fears us, Keeper said. Not because of our weapons. Not because of our victories. They fear us because we became something we hated. War changed us into monsters. We isolated ourselves to save the galaxy from us. And to save ourselves from what we had become. Ven found her voice. Are you still like that? Still. Monsters? We have been sleeping for 847 years, Keeper said. Trying to remember how to be human again. Trying to heal. But Captain Ven, you need to understand something important. What? The weapons are still here. The installations are still armed. And if we are threatened again, if we are forced to wake up in full, all that healing might disappear. We might remember only the anger. Only the rage. Only the killing. A new alarm sounded. The engineer checked his scanner. Captain, we have a problem. A big one. The engineer's voice was shaking. Captain, sensors are detecting massive power surges. All across human space. Hundreds of installations are waking up. Ven felt her stomach drop. Because we're here? Yes, Keeper answered calmly. Your presence triggered automatic protocols. The defense network is responding to an intrusion. But we meant no harm. Ven shouted. We're just salvagers. We're not an invasion force. The systems don't care about intentions, Keeper said. They only recognize facts. Fact, unauthorized vessels entered the exclusion zone. Fact, contact with human installations occurred. Fact, protocols must be followed. The tactical officer was staring at his display with wide eyes. Captain, we're surrounded. There are ships out there. Lots of ships. They were here the whole time. Invisible. Ven looked at her screens. One by one, vessels began appearing. They had been there all along, cloaked, hidden, watching. Sleek ships that looked like they were grown rather than built. Massive carriers that could hold entire fleets. Weapons platforms the size of moons. They've been following us since we crossed the boundary, Keeper confirmed. Observing, waiting, you were never alone. A communication signal cut through their systems. Every screen on the station showed the same image. A human woman in a military uniform. She looked exactly like the Admiral from the historical recording. But that was impossible. That recording was 847 years old. I am Admiral Chen, the woman said. Her voice was calm, almost friendly. You've had quite an adventure, Captain Ven. We've been watching your journey with interest. Ven found her voice. You're her. The one from the recordings. But that was almost 900 years ago. You should be dead. Chen smiled slightly. We solved the aging problem a long time ago. We also perfected suspended animation. My crew and I have been taking turns. Some sleep for decades while others watch. Then we switch. Time passes differently for us now. Why? Van asked.
Why maintain this vigil for so long?
Because we don't trust ourselves, Chen said simply. We removed ourselves from the galaxy because we were afraid of what we had become. But we also know the galaxy. We know that species forget. They get curious. They get greedy. So we watch. We make sure no one makes the mistake of thinking we're gone. We didn't mean to intrude, Ven said quickly. The distress beacon, we thought. You thought you'd find treasure, Chen interrupted. Technology to steal and sell. You thought the stories about humanity were exaggerations. You thought we were extinct or weak. She leaned forward. Were we? Ven swallowed hard. No. Good, at least you learned quickly. Chen's expression became serious. But we have a bigger problem now. Your presence here triggered our defense network, and your council noticed. A new display appeared showing space outside the exclusion zone. A large fleet was gathering. Council enforcement vessels from a dozen species. Hundreds of ships preparing to cross the boundary. They think we attacked you, Chen explained. They think you sent a distress call. Their protocols require them to investigate and rescue their citizens. They're preparing to enter human space. Ven's blood ran cold. But if they cross the boundary, then our defense systems will interpret it as an invasion, Chen finished. Automated stations across 200 worlds will activate fully. Weapons that have been sleeping for 847 years will wake up, and we will have no choice but to respond. You have to stop them, Ven pleaded. Tell them we're safe. Tell them to turn back. We've sent 20 messages, Chen said. They're not listening. The fleet is led by Ambassador Krelthos. He thinks this is his chance to prove the human threat is a myth. He wants to be the hero who breaks the superstition. The tactical officer interrupted. Captain, the council fleet is moving. They'll reach the boundary in 6 hours. Chen's image split, showing multiple views of human space. Everywhere, installations were powering up. Lights flickered on in stations that had been dark for centuries. Weapons charged. Ships emerged from hiding places. The entire human territory was coming alive. I've tried to stop this, Chen said. And for the first time, Ven heard emotion in her voice. Sadness. Regret. We've had 847 years of peace. 847 years to heal, to remember who we were before the wars. My crew, my people, we're different now. We've changed. We've learned. But if we're forced to fight, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Keeper's voice filled the station. Admiral, the defense network is requesting authorization codes. The automated systems want to know if they should engage preemptively. Negative, Chen said firmly. No preemptive action. We defend only. We are not the monsters anymore. We will not fire first. The probability of peaceful resolution is decreasing, Keeper warned. The council fleet will not turn back. Their pride is engaged. Ven had an idea. A desperate, crazy idea. Admiral Chen, what if we show them? What if we make them understand? Show them what? The truth. The history. Everything. Not through combat, but through knowledge. Keeper showed us the recordings. What if the council fleet could see what we saw? What if they could understand why the isolation exists? Chen was quiet for a moment. You think they would listen? I think they don't understand, Ven said. The young species, the ones who came after, we only know stories. We don't know the reality. Show us the reality and maybe we'll finally understand. Another voice cut into the communication. An old familiar voice. She's right. On the screens appeared Elder Counselor Cerethia. Her crystalline body was glowing bright white. She looked ancient and tired. I'm broadcasting to the council fleet, Cerethia said. I'm ordering them to stand down. But Krelthos won't listen to me. He thinks I'm a coward. He thinks he knows better. Then we show them together, Ven said. We broadcast the recordings. We make them see. Chen looked at Cerethia. Two beings from different times, different wars, different worlds. Slowly, Chen nodded. Keeper, prepare to broadcast the memory, Chen ordered. Full historical archives. Unedited. Send it to every ship in the council fleet. Make them see what their ancestors did. Make them see what we became. Make them understand. Compliance, Keeper responded. Chen looked directly at Ven. Thank you, Captain, for giving us a chance to choose peace again. But understand this. If they cross the boundary after seeing the truth, after understanding what we are, then we will have no choice. We will defend ourselves. and the universe will remember why it learned to tremble. On the displays, the Council fleet continued approaching. 6 hours until they reached the boundary. 6 hours to change the course of history. The broadcast began, sending 847 years of silence into the waiting galaxy. The broadcast reached the Council fleet like a wave of truth. On every ship, on every screen, the historical recordings played. Crew members stopped their work to watch. Pilots left their controls. Soldiers put down their weapons. They saw humanity's arrival to the stars. They saw the peaceful years. They saw the attacks, the slavery, the death, and they saw what came after. On the flagship, Ambassador Krelthos watched with his 4 eyes locked on the display. He watched the sovereign collective burn. He watched worlds go silent. He watched 273 civilizations fall to human rage. His second officer turned to him, mandibles trembling. "Ambassador, we should turn back." "We should—" "No," Krelthos said firmly. "This is propaganda. They're trying to scare us. They want us to believe they're invincible. But look, they're hiding. They've been hiding for 847 years. That's not strength. That's fear." But even as he spoke, his voice lacked certainty. On the research station, Ven watched the fleet's progress. They were 3 hours from the boundary now. Some ships had broken formation, slowing down, but most continued forward. "They're not stopping," she said desperately. "Why aren't they stopping?" "Pride," Admiral Chen answered. "The deadliest weapon in the universe. It makes species do stupid things." She touched a control panel. "Keeper, show them the simulation." Compliance, a new broadcast went out. This time it showed the future instead of the past. Computer projections of what would happen if the Council fleet crossed the boundary. The simulation was detailed, precise, and horrifying. It showed Council ships entering human space. It showed automated defenses activating. It showed weapons that bent space itself, that turned matter into energy, that reached through dimensions the Council didn't know existed. The simulation showed the Council fleet destroyed in minutes. Not hours, minutes, but it didn't stop there. The simulation showed the response spreading. Human ships emerging from their long sleep, angry at being awakened, angry at being threatened. It showed them moving beyond their borders. It showed Council worlds under siege. The simulation ended with a number. 127 species reduced to 89 within 1 year. On the flagship, Krelthos stared at the projection. His confidence wavered. "That's impossible," he whispered. "No species is that powerful." "They were," said a new voice. Elder Cerithia appeared on every screen in the fleet. Her ancient body was barely glowing now. She looked exhausted. "I fought in those wars," she said quietly. "My world supported the sovereigns. We thought we were strong. We thought our alliance made us invincible. The humans came to our system with 12 ships. Just 12. We had a defense fleet of 300 vessels. We thought we would win easily." She paused, and her voice cracked with old pain. "They destroyed our fleet in 4 hours. They didn't destroy our world. They didn't have to. They simply left us with a message. You have 1 year to surrender all military technology. If you refuse, we will return. We surrendered in 3 days. We've been a peaceful species ever since. Not by choice at first. By terror." Krelthos was shaking now. Around the fleet, ships began to slow down. Doubt spread like fire. "But they're different now," Cerithia continued. "I've been listening to Admiral Chen. I've heard the sadness in her voice. They isolated themselves not because they were afraid of us. They were afraid of themselves. They were afraid of what war had made them become." On the research station, Chen listened to Cerithia's words. Something in her expression softened. "The Elder is right," Chen said, broadcasting to both Ven and the Council fleet. "We've had 847 years to think about what we did. To regret it. To understand that strength without mercy is just cruelty. We don't want to fight you. We don't want to hurt anyone. We just want to be left alone until we're sure we can rejoin the galaxy without being a threat." She stood up and her voice became stronger. "But make no mistake, if you force us to defend ourselves, we will. And all the healing, all the peace we've built will disappear. We'll remember only the anger. The war, the killing. Is that what you want? Is your pride worth restarting a conflict that almost destroyed the galaxy?" 2 hours from the boundary, Krelthos looked at his fleet. He looked at the simulation results. He looked at the historical recordings still playing on side screens. He saw the truth he had been denying. His people had voted against helping humanity. His government had profited from the sovereign trade. His species had been complicit in the genocide that started the war. Slowly, painfully, he pressed the communication button. "All ships," he said, his voice heavy with shame. "Reduce speed. Prepare to reverse course." "Ambassador?" his second officer asked in surprise. "We were wrong," Krelthos said. "I was wrong. They're not hiding because they're weak. They're hiding because they're strong. Too strong. And they're trying to protect us from themselves." He looked at the screen showing Admiral Chen. "We're turning back. We apologize for the intrusion. We understand now." But not all ships listened. 3 vessels broke formation and accelerated. Young captains, full of pride and anger, decided to prove they weren't afraid. They crossed the boundary. Every alarm in human space screamed. "No," Chen whispered. "Don't do this. Please don't do this." Automated systems locked onto the 3 ships. Weapons charged. In 2 seconds, those ships would cease to exist. Chen's hand moved faster than thought. She entered override codes, shutting down the automated defenses manually, bypassing protocols that had been in place for 847 years. Taking personal control. "Stand down," she shouted to her crew. "Do not fire. I repeat, do not fire." The 3 council ships crossed deeper into human territory, unaware of how close they had come to death. "Admiral, regulations require," one of her officers began. "I know what regulations require," Chen snapped. "I wrote half of them, but I'm not going to kill 3 ships full of fools and restart a war. We are better than that. We have to be better than that." She took a deep breath and opened a channel to the 3 ships. "Council vessels, you have 5 minutes to turn around and exit human space. This is your only warning. We are choosing not to destroy you. We are choosing peace. Don't make us regret that choice." The 3 ships, suddenly realizing they were still alive when they should be dead, turned and fled. Krelthos watched them retreat back to the main fleet. He felt shame deeper than he had ever known. Chen contacted him directly. "Ambassador, new treaties must be established. We cannot have incidents like this again." "Agreed," Krelthos said quietly. "What do you propose?" "Human space remains forbidden," Chen said. "But we will establish a neutral station at the boundary. Diplomatic contact only, through AI intermediaries like Keeper. No physical visits, no trade. Just communication. A way for both sides to talk without risk." "For how long?" Chen looked tired. "So very tired. Until we're ready. Until we're sure we've healed. Until we know we can walk among you without being a threat. Maybe another 100 years. Maybe 1,000. I don't know." "And if someone violates the boundary again?" Krelthos asked. "Then we defend ourselves," Chen said simply. "But we'll always choose warnings over weapons when we can. We'll always try peace first, because that's who we want to be." The council fleet withdrew. The crisis ended. Human space went silent again, but this time with a communication station blinking at the boundary, a small light in the darkness, a promise of future dialogue. Ven and her crew were escorted back to council space in a human vessel. Before they left, Chen spoke to Ven privately. "Thank you," Chen said. "You reminded us why we chose isolation, why we chose peace. You gave us a chance to prove we're not monsters anymore. Will you ever come back?" Ven asked. "Will humans ever rejoin the galaxy?" Chen smiled sadly. "Maybe someday when we're ready. Tell your people we're still here. We're still watching. But we want to be better. We want to heal. Give us time. 50 years passed. The galaxy changed. Treaties were honored. The boundary was respected. The younger species learned the full truth of the human wars. Not just the myths. Fear remained, but it was mixed with understanding now, and respect." Then on a quiet morning, a message arrived at the council chambers. "This is Admiral Chen of Humanity. We request permission to send observers to your council meetings. Not as members. Not as participants. Just as observers. We want to learn how the galaxy has changed. We want to see if we're ready to take the next step." The council voted. This time, the result was unanimous. Yes. A single human ship arrived 3 months later. It docked at the council station. 5 humans emerged, blinking in the light, seeing alien faces for the first time in 897 years. They were welcomed with caution, with fear, but also with hope. Admiral Chen was not among them. She had finally chosen to sleep, to rest, to let younger humans take the next steps. But her final message played at the welcoming ceremony. "We are not the species we were. We are not the monsters you remember. We are trying. We are healing. We ask for your patience. We ask for your understanding. And we promise never again will we let anger define us. Never again will we choose destruction over dialogue. We are humanity. And we are finally ready to try again. The universe still trembled at the memory, but now, mixed with that fear, was something new. Hope. Dr. Alan Carter stared at the aliens sitting across from him in Earth's first interstellar embassy. The three Zithrians looked uncomfortable in the room's conditions, despite their environmental suits. Their breathing masks made soft hissing sounds with each breath. "You want to do what?" Alan asked, certain he had misheard. The lead Zithrian, Vila, adjusted her translator. "We wish to establish a wilderness experience resort on Earth. Our market. Research indicates substantial interest among wealthy citizens across the galaxy." Alan rubbed his temples. 6 months ago, humanity had made first contact. 3 months ago, they learned Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world in galactic records. Now aliens wanted to turn it into a tourist trap. "I don't understand," Alan said. "Your people need protective suits just to sit in this room. Why would anyone want to vacation here?" Vila's compound eyes blinked, and what Alan had learned was excitement. Precisely what humans consider normal represents the ultimate adventure for species from gentler worlds. Your variable weather, high gravity, dangerous wildlife, and microbe-rich environment. It's the most extreme experience imaginable. The second Zithrian, a financial officer named Drex, added, "Citizens will pay enormous sums for guided experiences on a Class 12 world. We project first-year revenues exceeding 50 million galactic credits." Alan looked down at his notes. As Earth's leading exobiologist, he understood the science behind their classification. Compared to most inhabited worlds, Earth was a nightmare. Higher oxygen levels, stronger gravity, extreme temperature variations, aggressive microorganisms, and unpredictable weather patterns. What humans considered a pleasant spring day could kill most galactic citizens without protection. "This seems dangerous," Alan said. "For your people, I mean." "All experiences would be conducted with appropriate safety measures," the third Zithrian, a safety engineer named Mott, assured him. "Controlled environments, emergency medical facilities, and graduated exposure protocols." Alan wasn't convinced. "I'll need to discuss this with the International Space Agency." As the meeting ended, Alan's communication device buzzed. The message from ISA Director Wu was brief. "Call immediately regarding Yellowstone incident. Susan." Wells had been a park ranger at Yellowstone National Park for 8 years. She loved the wilderness, the animals, and even the unpredictable geysers. What she didn't love were rule breakers, especially ones that weren't human. She crouched beside a strange metal device partially hidden among pine needles near Old Faithful. It was the third such device she'd found this week. Small, cylindrical, with blinking lights and what appeared to be collection vials. Definitely not approved research equipment. Susan's radio crackled. "Ranger Wells, we have reports of unusual activity near Prismatic Spring. Possible unauthorized person. 20 minutes?" Later, Susan parked her vehicle and hiked toward the famous colorful hot spring. The tourist paths were closed for the season, making the unauthorized visitor easy to spot, especially since he wasn't human. The figure wore what looked like a spacesuit, but lighter and more flexible than anything NASA had developed. It was collecting water samples from the edge of the spring, the steaming, mineral-rich water flowing into sealed containers. "Excuse me," Susan called out, approaching cautiously. "This area is restricted. I need to see your research permit." The figure startled, nearly falling into the scalding water. It turned, and Susan found herself looking at her first alien face-to-face. Through a clear helmet, she could see a being with blue-tinted skin and large compound eyes like an insect's. "You're not supposed to be here," Susan said, recovering from her shock. "All extraterrestrial research requires permits and human supervision." The alien spoke, a device on its suit translating. "Apologies. I am Krill, advanced scout for Zithrian expeditions. Simple environmental sampling for resort development." "Resort development in Yellowstone?" Susan's voice rose. "This is a protected national park." Not this specific location, Krill clarified, using samples to calibrate safety systems for proposed tourism facility. Before Susan could respond, Krill made a strange gasping sound. The alien dropped to its knees, breathing heavily. "Are you okay?" Susan rushed forward. "Suit breach." Krill wheezed. "Microbes. Can't." The alien collapsed. Susan immediately radioed for emergency help, then checked the suit. There was a tiny tear near the wrist, barely visible. Such a small hole, yet the alien was in serious distress. As she waited for help, Susan realized with growing horror what this meant. If a microscopic tear could cause such a severe reaction, Earth was far more dangerous to aliens than she had imagined. The very air they breathed could be deadly. 3 hours later, Alan Carter rushed through the doors of the newly established Xenobiology Wing at Yellowstone Medical Center. Director Wu and 2 security officers met him in the hallway. "What happened?" Alan asked. "Zithrian scout exposed to unfiltered Earth environment," Wu explained. "Apparently collecting samples without proper protocols." Through a window, Alan could see medical staff working on the unconscious alien. They had the Zithrian in a sealed chamber, administering what he assumed were broad-spectrum antibiotics and antivirals. "Will it survive?" Alan asked. "Too early to tell. The amount of exposure was minimal, but these beings have no evolutionary defenses against Earth microbes." A park ranger approached them. She was tall, with sun-weathered skin and a serious expression. "Dr. Carter, I'm Susan Wells. I found the alien." Alan shook her hand. "Can you tell me exactly what happened?" As Susan described the encounter, Alan's concerns grew. If a tiny suit breach could nearly kill a Zithrian, how could they possibly operate a tourist resort safely? Director Wu seemed to read his thoughts. "The International Space Agency has made a decision. This incident highlights the dangers, but also the opportunity. The Galactic Council is watching how we handle this. If Earth is going to join galactic society, we need to demonstrate responsibility." "What does that mean?" Susan asked. "It means," Wu said, looking at both of them, "that you two are now the official human liaisons to the Zithrian Tourism Project." "What?" they said in unison. "Dr. Carter, you understand the biology. Ranger Wells, you understand practical wilderness management. Together you'll ensure this project proceeds safely, or you'll shut it down." Alan looked through the window at the struggling alien, then at the determined park ranger beside him. Neither of them had signed up for this. "When do we start?" he asked. "You already have," Wu replied. "Welcome to galactic diplomacy." 6 months passed quickly. In a remote area of Wyoming, far from major cities, the Terran Experience Resort took shape. The main complex resembled a giant glass dome surrounded by smaller bubbles connected by enclosed walkways. Construction. Crews worked day and night, with human workers handling the outdoor tasks while alien engineers managed the climate controls from protected environments. Alan Carter stood beside Vila, watching a team install the final section of the main dome. His role as human liaison had evolved into something between diplomat, safety inspector, and reluctant tour guide. "The containment systems are impressive," Alan admitted. "Triple redundant air filtration, radiation shields, gravity adjusters." Vila nodded, her environmental suit much sleeker than the bulky prototype she'd worn during their first meeting. "Necessary precautions. Your world is beautiful but hostile." Alan suppressed a smile. What humans called a nice spring day required extensive protective measures for visitors from more gentle worlds. Earth's extreme features included oxygen-rich atmosphere, high gravity, broad temperature variations, unpredictable precipitation, and countless microorganisms. "The resort opens in 2 weeks, Vila said. "We should review the emergency protocols again." Alan checked his tablet. "Susan's team is conducting a drill right now." On the other side of the compound, Susan Wells watched her trainee guides scramble into action. The alarm had sounded, signaling a simulated containment breach. Men and women in bright orange guide jackets rushed to their stations, carrying emergency breather masks and portable shield generators. 90 seconds, Susan called out, checking her stopwatch. Too slow. In a real breach, visitors would be experiencing respiratory distress after 30 seconds of exposure. The trainees looked exhausted. Most were former park rangers, wilderness experts, and emergency responders. For the past month, Susan had trained them relentlessly on alien physiology and emergency response. Again, she ordered. And remember, you need to reach visitors in the Rainforest Dome and the Alpine Experience. As they reset, a young guide named Peter approached her. The Prolaxian ambassador is here for his preview tour. Dr. Carter asked if you could handle it. Susan sighed. More diplomatic babysitting. Tell the team to continue drilling. I want those response times under 60 seconds by end of day. The Prolaxian ambassador resembled a tall, slender humanoid with silvery skin that reflected light, like polished metal. His environmental suit was clearly custom-made, more fashion statement than protective equipment. Ambassador Noor, welcome to Terran Experience, Susan said, extending the traditional Prolaxian greeting, right palm flat, left hand curved. Ranger Wells, the ambassador responded. I've heard much about your involvement. You are something of a celebrity among my people after rescuing Scout Krill. Susan felt uncomfortable with the praise. The young Zithrian scout had recovered from his exposure, though not without lingering health issues. His incident had become a cautionary tale in training materials. I'd like to show you our controlled environments, Susan said, leading the ambassador through the main reception area. We've created 7 distinct Earth biomes, each with graduated exposure protocols. The ambassador's eyes widened as they entered the first dome, a temperate forest with actual Earth trees growing under filtered sunlight. Special walkways kept visitors safely above the soil. Remarkable, he said. On my world, such diverse plant life would be impossible without extensive genetic engineering. Each environment offers different experiences, Susan explained. Visitors can observe real Earth weather through protective shields, touch filtered samples of soil and water, and even experience modified versions of our seasons. They continued through desert, mountain, and ocean simulations, each more impressive than the last. The Rainforest Dome featured a controlled rainstorm every 3 hours, with visitors watching from observation decks. And this, Susan said as they entered the final dome, is our most popular feature. The ambassador gasped. Above them, only a transparent barrier separated visitors from the open Wyoming sky. Clouds drifted past, unfiltered sunlight streaming down. The immersion experience, Susan explained. Visitors in full protective gear can stand under actual Earth sky. The barrier maintains ideal pressure and filters harmful radiation, but otherwise provides the closest possible experience to standing on Earth's surface. The ambassador moved closer to the transparent ceiling. Extraordinary. May I? We've prepared a special demonstration, Susan said, motioning toward a sealed doorway where technicians waited with equipment. A brief, supervised exposure to filtered rain. The ambassador's excitement was visible even through his suit. I'd be honored. Alan monitored the ambassador's vital signs from the control room. The test had been carefully planned. 10 seconds of extremely diluted rainwater on the ambassador's suited hand. Even with multiple safeguards, Alan felt nervous. Through the cameras, he watched the demonstration begin. The ambassador extended his gloved hand into a sealed chamber. A small valve opened, releasing several drops of filtered rainwater onto the protective material. The ambassador watched in fascination. Then, without warning, he pressed a release on his suit, exposing his actual skin to the water. Alarms blared. Susan reacted instantly, slapping the emergency shutdown and pulling the ambassador's arm back while technicians rushed forward with neutralizing spray. What were you thinking? She demanded, as medical staff surrounded them. The ambassador's silver skin had already developed angry red blisters where the water had touched. Yet, remarkably, he seemed thrilled rather than concerned. Extraordinary sensation, like fire, but more intense. Alan arrived, breathing hard from running. The medical team says he'll recover. Minor chemical burns from what our scientists call slightly acidic rain. Perfectly normal for Earth, but apparently caustic to Prolaxian physiology. Susan shook her head in disbelief. He removed his protection deliberately. And he wants to come back, Alan added. Apparently, the experience was transcendent. Later that evening, Susan and Alan sat in the empty staff cafeteria, reviewing the incident report. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" Susan asked. Alan nodded. The ambassador's already shared his experience on galactic social networks. Advance bookings have doubled. Susan looked out the window at the Wyoming sunset. They have no idea what they're getting into. No, Alan agreed. But they're willing to pay a fortune to find out. Outside, dark clouds gathered on the horizon. The weather forecast predicted thunderstorms by morning. Just another normal day on Earth, and an extreme adventure for their soon-to-arrive guests. 3 months after opening, Terran Experience had become the most exclusive destination in the galaxy. Aliens from 17 different species had paid fortunes to visit Earth, the notorious Class 12 death world. The resort operated at full capacity, with bookings scheduled 2 years in advance. Alan sat in his office reviewing the latest visitor statistics. The most popular attractions surprised him. Standing in actual precipitation had a 6-week waiting list. Diurnal temperature fluctuation. Experience received rave reviews across galactic social networks. Even unfiltered atmospheric sampling, essentially just breathing slightly filtered Earth air, earned record satisfaction ratings. His door slid open, and Susan entered. Her ranger uniform had been replaced with the resort's official guide outfit, though she'd refused to wear the ridiculous Earth expert cap that marketing had designed. "I need to talk to you about the new Predator Encounter exhibit," she said without greeting. Alan sighed. "The safety team approved it yesterday." "That's because the safety team hasn't spent 20 years dealing with actual bears," Susan replied. "The observation distances are too close. The protective barriers are rated for impacts 10 times stronger than anything Earth wildlife can generate." "It's not about the barriers," Susan insisted. "It's about the psychological impact. A wolf pack hunting or a grizzly standing on its hind legs looks harmless to us. To most aliens, it's nightmare fuel. We had 3 panic attacks last week, just from visitors seeing eagles swoop down on fish." Before Alan could respond, his communication device chimed with a priority message. "We'll continue this later. The Galactic Senator has arrived for his VIP tour." Senator Drax of the Unified Worlds was the most influential visitor yet to grace Terran Experience. As head of the Commerce Committee, his opinion could make or break Earth's growing tourism industry. His entourage included family members, advisors, and security staff, 22 visitors in total. Alan and Vila greeted them in the VIP reception dome. The senator was tall even for a Krylaxian, with the characteristic crystalline exoskeleton that sparkled under the lights. "Welcome to Earth, Senator," Alan said, offering the traditional greeting. "We're honored by your presence." "Dr. Carter," the senator replied, "I've heard fascinating reports about this facility. My grandchildren insisted we experience it firsthand." 2 smaller Krylaxians peeked out from behind the senator. Their exoskeletons were softer, not yet fully developed. "We've prepared a special itinerary," Vila explained. "Beginning with our most popular attractions, followed by the new wilderness immersion experience." "Excellent," the senator said. "We're particularly interested in your weather phenomenon demonstrations. Is it true you can make water fall from above?" Alan smiled. "We call it rain, Senator. And yes, you'll experience it today." Susan led the second half of the senator's tour. She'd been assigned to guide them through the Wilderness Dome, where visitors could observe actual Earth ecosystems from elevated walkways. Below, a carefully managed forest contained controlled populations of small animals and birds. "This environment represents a typical North American temperate forest," she explained to the group. "The plants you see are called trees, and they convert your carbon dioxide waste into oxygen." The alien visitors watched in fascination. For beings from worlds with engineered environments and carefully managed ecosystems, Earth's biological diversity was mind-boggling. "Are those organisms dangerous?" asked one of the senator's aides, pointing to a family of rabbits. "Those are herbivores," Susan explained. "They eat only plants and pose no threat." The tour continued to the observation platform overlooking a small pond. Susan was explaining the water cycle when she felt a slight vibration beneath her feet. First, she thought it was just another group on a nearby walkway. Then the vibration intensified. Warning lights flashed. "What's happening?" the senator demanded. "Minor seismic activity," Susan said calmly, though her heart raced. "What we call an earthquake. It's perfectly normal for Earth." The visitors began to panic as the shaking continued. To humans, it would barely register as a tremor, but to species from geologically stable worlds, it was terrifying. "Please remain calm," Susan instructed. "Our facility is designed to—" A loud crack interrupted her. One of the support beams for the observation platform had shifted slightly. The safety system activated, shields deploying around the visitors. Then, the lights went out. In the control center, Alan watched with growing horror as emergency alerts flooded the screens. The earthquake, barely magnitude 3.5, had somehow damaged the primary containment systems. Backup generators kicked in, but 3 sections of the facility reported integrity breaches. "Status report," he demanded. A technician responded, "Minor structural damage in sections 5, 8, and 12. Environmental contamination in the wilderness dome. 17 visitors exposed to unfiltered conditions." "Deployment emergency response teams," Alan ordered. "Priority to the senators group." On the monitors, he could see Susan already leading emergency procedures. She had the visitors in emergency bubbles administering oxygen supplements. Alan activated the facility-wide communication system. "Attention all staff, this is not a drill. Implement Protocol 7 immediately. Protocol 7, full evacuation of all visitors to orbital facilities." It was the resort's most extreme measure, never before used. 6 hours later, Susan sat beside Alan in the emergency command center. The facility had been evacuated. 17 aliens were being treated for exposure to Earth's environment, including 3 members of the senator's party. "How bad is it?" Susan asked. "Bad," Alan replied. "The senator's youngest grandchild developed a severe allergic reaction to oak pollen. Nothing life-threatening, but it will leave permanent scars on their exoskeleton. The others? Various reactions to Earth bacteria, fungi, and atmospheric components. All stable, but the Galactic Senate is calling for an immediate investigation." Vila entered, looking exhausted. "The preliminary reports are already circulating. On galactic networks, they're calling Earth too deadly for tourism." "It was just a minor earthquake," Susan protested. "That's not all," Alan said grimly. "Medical scans of the returning tourists found Earth microorganisms in their systems. Despite decontamination protocols, they transported bacteria back to their ships." Susan's eyes widened. "You mean—" "Yes," Alan confirmed. "The Galactic Health Authority is concerned about potential cross-species contamination. They're talking about quarantine." "For the affected tourists?" Susan asked. "No," Alan said quietly. "For all of Earth." Outside, through the reinforced windows, they could see the Wyoming sunset painting the sky in brilliant orange and pink. To humans, it was a beautiful end to a difficult day. To the galaxy, it might be the last glimpse of a world too dangerous to visit. 1 week after the earthquake, Alan sat across from 5 Galactic Senate representatives in the orbital station above Earth. The hearing had lasted for 3 days. Medical experts, safety engineers, and tourism officials had all testified about the incident at Terran Experience. Now it was Alan's turn to speak. Earth's future in galactic society might depend on what he said next. "Distinguished representatives," Alan began, "I won't minimize what happened. 17 visitors experienced unfiltered Earth conditions. All suffered reactions, though none fatal. However, I believe closing Earth to the galaxy would be a mistake." The lead representative, an elegant being named Zorus with flowing tentacles and eyes that changed color with emotion, leaned forward. "Dr. Carter, the medical evidence is clear. Earth microorganisms were found on 3 different ships. Had they reached populated worlds, the contamination could have been catastrophic." "I understand," Alan replied. "But I propose a solution that—" addresses these concerns while preserving Earth's relationship with the galactic community. He activated a display showing new facility designs. Instead of fighting Earth's classification as a death world, we should embrace it. I suggest transforming the resort into the Earth Adaptation Institute, part research station, part controlled experience center, the representatives murmured among themselves. The incident proved something important, Alan continued. Our current approach, trying to shield visitors entirely from Earth's environment, is flawed. One minor breach and disaster strikes. Instead, we should focus on graduated adaptation. You propose deliberately exposing visitors to Earth conditions? Asked another representative, his crystalline form glittering with apparent alarm. In careful, scientifically monitored stages, Alan clarified. With comprehensive training and medical support. The representatives looked unconvinced. Before you decide, Alan said, I invite you to experience something. Susan waited nervously at the trailhead. When Alan had called with his desperate plan, she'd thought he was joking. Now, watching the shuttle land and 5 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy emerge, she realized he was entirely serious. Ranger Wells, Zoris greeted her. We understand you've prepared a demonstration. Susan nodded. A short hike through Wyoming wilderness. Unfiltered, unmodified Earth environment. The representatives looked at the protective gear Susan offered. Them, simple breathing masks and light clothing. Nothing like their usual environmental suits. This seems inadequate, one said. It's what humans use in slightly challenging conditions, Susan explained. The masks filter pollen but allow you to experience Earth air in diluted form. The representatives were reluctant, but diplomatic protocol made it difficult to refuse. They donned the minimal gear and followed Susan onto the trail. The hike lasted only 30 minutes, but it changed everything. Susan led the representatives through a forest, across a small stream, and to a meadow overlooking the mountains. She showed them wildflowers, helped them touch tree bark, and let them listen to birdsong without electronic filters. They were nervous at first, constantly checking their medical monitors. But gradually, something changed. They began to ask questions, to look around with genuine interest rather than fear. When a light rain began to fall, Susan expected panic. Instead, the representatives extended their hands, feeling the drops with expressions of wonder. How do you live with such intensity? Zoris asked, watching water bead on her skin without causing harm. We were born to it, Susan explained. Earth shaped us just as your world shaped you. Back at the shuttle, Alan waited with a medical team. The representatives underwent decontamination, but their medical scans showed something unexpected. Your immune responses are already adapting, the doctor explained. Brief controlled exposure has triggered cellular level changes. With continued graduated exposure, you could develop significant resistance to Earth conditions. Zoris's eyes shifted to a color Susan hadn't seen before. Is this common? We're just beginning to understand it, Alan said. But yes, most species show adaptive responses when exposure is properly managed. Earth doesn't just challenge, it strengthens. 2 days later, Susan and Alan sat together in the orbital conference room as the Senate representatives delivered their decision. The Earth Adaptation Institute proposal is conditionally approved, Zoris announced. The current tourism facility will be redesigned as a research and training center. Visitors will still come, but with a new purpose, controlled adaptation, rather than mere observation. Alan felt relief wash over him. Earth would remain part of galactic society. There are conditions, another representative added. Strict quarantine protocols for all departing visitors, comprehensive medical monitoring, and research data must be shared with all member worlds. We accept these terms, Alan said quickly. After the representatives departed, Susan turned to Alan. You gambled everything on that hike. Alan nodded. I realized something after the earthquake. We've been thinking about Earth all wrong. We saw its dangers as liabilities to be contained. But they're actually assets, challenges that can strengthen other species, just as they strengthened humanity. So what happens now? We rebuild. The Institute will focus on adaptation research, How different species can safely adjust to Earth conditions. How controlled exposure can strengthen immune systems. How Earth's unique environment might benefit the galaxy. Susan looked thoughtful. You know, in ranger training they taught us that forests need occasional fires to stay healthy. Some pine cones only open and release seeds after intense heat. Exactly, Alan said. Challenge drives adaptation. Earth is the galaxy's ultimate challenge. As they prepared to return to the surface, Alan received a message from Vila. The Zithrian's words made him smile. What is it? Susan asked. The first. Research volunteers have already signed up. And guess who's leading the group? Who? Krill. The Zithrian scout you rescued. Seems his partial exposure gave him a head start on adaptation. He wants to be the first alien to walk Earth's surface, with minimal protection. Susan laughed. From emergency patient to pioneer, that's quite a journey. Outside the viewport, Earth turned slowly below them, blue and green and beautiful. No longer just a dangerous curiosity, but a world with gifts to offer, if you were brave enough to adapt to its challenges. 5 years passed. What began as the Terran Experience tourist resort had transformed into the Earth Adaptation Institute, now famous throughout the galaxy. The Wyoming facility had expanded to 3 times its original size, with new research, wings, training zones, and adaptation habitats. Alan stood in his office looking at the awards and recognitions that lined the walls. His research on cross-species environmental adaptation had revolutionized galactic medicine. What started as a way to save Earth's place in the interstellar community had become something much more important. His communication device chimed. Susan's face appeared on the screen. They're here, she said simply. Alan hurried to the main reception area. Today marked a milestone that once seemed impossible. The reception dome buzzed with activity. Humans in researcher uniforms mingled with aliens of various species. What struck Alan most was that many of the aliens wore only light environmental suits rather than the full protective gear that was once standard. Some wore only breathing masks, their bodies otherwise directly exposed to modified Earth conditions. Susan met him by the entrance. Her ranger uniform had been replaced by the blue and green of the Institute's leadership team. 5 years as adaptation training director had earned her respect throughout the galaxy. Nervous? She asked. A little, Alan admitted. The isolates haven't made contact with anyone in over 300 years. That they're coming to Earth specifically. It validates everything we've done, Susan finished. The main doors slid open. A delegation of 7 beings entered, the representatives of the isolate worlds. They looked almost like tall humans with gray skin and large, sensitive eyes. Unlike most visitors, they wore full environmental suits. Their civilization had voluntarily cut itself off from galactic society centuries ago due to their extreme environmental sensitivity. Alan stepped forward. Welcome to Earth. I am Dr. Alan Carter, Research Director. This is Susan Wells, Adaptation Training Director. The lead delegate bowed slightly. I am Naren, speaker for the Isolate Consensus. We thank you for receiving us. It is our honor, Alan replied. If you'll follow me, we've prepared a presentation on our adaptation protocols. As they walked through the facility, Alan explained how the Institute had evolved. After the incident 5 years ago, we changed our entire approach. Instead of shielding visitors completely from Earth's environment, we developed graduated exposure techniques. They passed through the research wing where scientists from 23 worlds collaborated. Through observation windows, they could see laboratories where volunteers underwent careful adaptation treatments. The process begins with microdose exposure to individual Earth elements, single bacteria strains, specific plant pollens, controlled mineral samples, Alan explained. As tolerance develops, we increase complexity and exposure time. The Isolate delegates watched with obvious interest as they entered the training center. Here, aliens in various stages of adaptation practiced, in environments that simulated Earth conditions. Our most advanced participants can now spend up to 6 hours in filtered outdoor conditions, Susan said proudly. Some species show remarkable adaptation rates. On cue, A door opened, and Krill entered. The Zithrian scout who had once nearly died from a tiny suit breach now wore only a light breathing apparatus. His blue skin had darkened slightly from controlled sun exposure. "This is Krill, our first success case and now head of our guide training program," Susan introduced him. Naren studied the Zithrian with amazement. "Your physiological adaptation is visible. Does it cause discomfort?" "The process was challenging," Krill admitted, "but the results have transformed my life. I can now experience sensations my species never evolved to handle." The tour continued to the medical wing, where the chief doctor, a human named Dr. Patel, joined them. "The most surprising discovery," Dr. Patel explained, "was that controlled exposure to Earth's challenges strengthens immune responses across all tested species. Visitors who complete even basic adaptation protocols show increased resistance to diseases on their homeworlds. Earth doesn't just challenge, it strengthens," Alan added, using the phrase that had become the Institute's unofficial motto. Finally, they reached the viewing platform overlooking the valley. Through the massive windows, the delegates could see the beauty of Wyoming's landscape: mountains, forests, and open skies. "In 2 days," Susan said, "we will begin your preliminary assessment for adaptation potential. But tonight, we invite you to observe something special." As if on cue, the sky darkened and lightning flashed in the distance. A storm was rolling in. "Perfect timing," Alan said with a smile. The delegates watched in wonder as rain began to fall, droplets streaming down the reinforced glass. Thunder rumbled, and more lightning illuminated the clouds. "On most worlds," Alan explained, "weather is controlled or non-existent. Earth's natural cycles create challenges but also beauty and renewal." Naren pressed a hand against the glass, feeling the vibration of the thunder. "For centuries, we believed our environmental sensitivity was our greatest weakness. We isolated ourselves rather than risk exposure to worlds that might harm us. Many visitors felt the same way initially," Susan said. "But weakness can become strength with proper understanding. We came because rumors reached even our isolated worlds," Naren said. "Stories of a place where the most challenging environment in the galaxy was being harnessed to help species adapt and grow stronger, where the deadliest world had become a place of healing." Alan nodded. "Earth has always been dangerous, but danger and opportunity often go hand in hand." The storm intensified outside, rain pouring down in sheets. Inside, aliens who once would have fled in terror now watched with fascination. Some were even preparing for their daily adaptation sessions, brief, controlled exposures to the very forces they once feared. In a quiet moment, Susan moved next to Alan. "Did you ever imagine this when we started? Earth becoming known for healing rather than harm?" Alan shook his head. "I just wanted to keep Earth from being quarantined. But this is better. Much better." Beyond the glass, the storm began to clear. As if on cue, the clouds parted, and a rainbow arched across the valley. The delegates gasped at the spectacle. "What is that phenomenon?" Naren asked in wonder. "We call it a rainbow," Susan explained. "It happens when sunlight returns after rain." "After difficulty, beauty," Naren translated in their own language. "Perhaps that is what Earth teaches best of all." Alan smiled as he watched the delegates' reactions. Earth, once classified as a dangerous death world, had become something else entirely. A place where the galaxy's most vulnerable came to grow stronger. The very qualities that made Earth dangerous had become its greatest gift to the stars.